the hell's going on?
There's no sleeping in hockey except on game day.
Well, that's why I put that Google Calendar alarm on there, X, so everybody's.
Yep. It was crazy. So I'm like, I just completely lost it. I was just, well, anyway. I'm here. I'm better. Better than I was yesterday. So tomorrow I have some sort of shot in the morning, so that'll be fun. But who knows? Maybe I'll make fun pain medication, and I'll be silly in the afternoon. We'll see what happens. with any luck.
I'll make sure I can carry the conversation for an hour, just in case.
For the show. A couple of friends went to the Oilers game. We'll talk about it. Let's get right into it. It's the
Thursday, November 6th.
November 6th. Okay, we'll go.
It's not a Friday.
Yep.
Mike, Ryan, Kevin. That order, eh?
Okay.
Yeah.
Not Friday yet. That's okay. Here we go. Hey, Hockey World. It's Thursday, November 6th, 2014.
I'm Michael Agello.
I'm Ryan Garner.
I'm Kevin Allen of USA Today.
And I'm Eklund from Hockeybuzz.com, and you're watching the Hockeybuzzcast on Hockeybuzz.com. This is the podcast where we get together every Monday through Friday and discuss the goings-on in the news so you don't have to pay attention to anything else in the world. And you can just go about your lives, living your normal existences without having to think about hockey.
You can live vicariously through us. There you go.
Yes, we know we know you're not doing that, so that's why we're because you remind us if we make any mistakes. We know you're on top of this stuff. But anyway, so Ryan was just saying before we got on that you really like having these Oilers on the East Coast, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. It gets it over with. First game of the night, then you can enjoy the rest of your evening.
Conversely, the Leafs are in the Central Time Zone, so I have to wait till 12 o'clock for a loss.
That's rough.
Right. So there was last night a bunch more overtime goals. This is a really interesting stat that I thought from last night was that John Tavares now has officially. I don't know if you guys saw this. Is officially the all-time overtime goal leader for the New York Islanders. Isn't that a crazy statistic? Like, think about that. Think about this team. Like, he's got 5 overtime goals. I guess not too crazy. Maybe when you consider Bossy played in an era where they had ties, right? But still, he's got 5 overtime goals, and Tavares is he's obviously arrived as a star, but this is I don't know. I thought that was interesting, Mike. Maybe I'm wrong.
I'm assuming that's regular season overtime goals because I don't remember the exact year that the overtime.
Actually, hold on. I think this is everything. I'm going to check this stat because there's someone that says.
I would seriously doubt with them winning as many Stanley Cups as they did in the early '80s that Tavares has eclipsed Trottier or Bossy for.
All right. Well, no, because this is John Tavares. This comes out from the NHL Public Relations Department. This is a tweet. John Tavares, at 91 Tavares, is first in New York Islanders history to record 5 overtime goals. Bossy, LaFontaine, Oposo, and Turgeon all have 4.
Wow. That's crazy. Well, but it points to 2 things, right? It points to, first of all, teams playing for the overtime more than they ever have before. And second of all, it shows, we're seeing low-scoring games. Those Islander dynasty teams, they were playing in an era where teams were winning 7-5, 7-4, right? 6-2. So you didn't get a lot of close games. You didn't get as many overtime games. So that makes sense, but I'm very surprised to see that he has that record being as young as he is.
Well, there's a lot more opportunities for overtime goals in the modern game because, there's potential every night to go into overtime where, the older players were dealing with that only in the postseason and, how many games would they actually play and how many of those would go into overtime. Mike Bossy's opportunities for overtime goals just probably were not as great as even we would think they would. They had a nice run, but, how many overtime games do you have in a season? So, I think Tavares, even in his young career, probably has had more opportunities than Bossy or Trottier did.
Well,
and Mike Bossy scored 85 playoff goals, so in 120 some odd games. So, if his top was 4 or 5 overtime goals in the playoffs, that's about.
The Islanders didn't go to that many playoff. The overtimes when you think about it, because for all those runs, that's not. They didn't. You would think you would have more than that. I mean, I agree that it's just Tavares is such a young player still. I mean, it is definitely. But to your point, Kevin, Oposo has 4. So I mean, there's the other. So he's right in there too. So
and I think Bossy having 4 overtime goals is more impressive than Tavares having 5.
Because they were all in the playoffs.
Yeah, Bossy got all his in the playoffs, and it's a different situation. It's not 4-on-4. It's they're a little bit more meaningful. So I mean, not taking anything away from John Tavares, who I agree has arrived, and I really thought he was going to push Crosby for the point title this season, and coming out of the gate it looked like he might, but they obviously cooled off pretty quickly. But I think he's a great player, and I think he's really sort of arrived also as a league spokesman. Like, I'm very impressed when I speak to him. He's a very well-spoken young man who, sort of understands all aspects of the game. You can talk to him about any subject, and he's got an educated opinion about what he thinks is going on or should occur.
I've been impressed by the fact that the guy came into the league, and when he first got here, was people sort of got on him about his skating. And then he worked on it, like right away. And now when we did that thing the other day, that analytics thing. Some are calling him one of the fastest skaters in the league. That's pretty impressive. I mean, I don't know whether or not that's true, and it's just based on one analytics, but he's definitely improved his skating, and he doesn't look slow out there. He's never looked slow to me, but that was definitely the knock, early on.
In that instance, Eck, I think he's emulated Crosby, because if you remember the one thing about Crosby, people complained that or had a criticism of him that he wasn't good on faceoffs, so he worked tirelessly over a summer to improve on faceoffs, and he's now one of the better faceoff guys in the league. People said that he didn't have one of the better shots, so he worked on it, and now he's got one of the better shots in the league. I think these players like Tavares and Stamkos realize they have to work at certain aspects of their game to be as dominant as a guy like Sidney Crosby, and I think that they do that.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Like Sidney Crosby and I have a little tradition. Every fall I go to interview him, my question for the last, almost not his first season, but maybe his second or his third season we started. I say, what have you been working on, and where do you? And it's always exactly just as Mike pointed out. 1 year it was, okay, I want to get better on face-offs, and that was the year he broke through. Everybody said, okay, he's not a real good goal scorer. That season he shot more, he was more selective on where he was shooting from, and he started to score more goals. The following year he talked to me about consistency of play, where he didn't want to go 2 or 3 games without being able to get a point here and there. And yet in that season, when I looked at his record for the season, he was exactly. I mean, this guy is very calculating, trying to improve, and he has specific objectives that he works on, and he has made himself a better player. I always chuckle too when I hear people talk about him as if he's a perimeter player, because he's in his butt. He's an edgy player who drives hard to the net. He's strong on his skates. One of my theories on why he and Zetterberg, go at each other is they're very similar in their ability to, they're feisty guys who are very hard to knock off the puck, can have great balance on their skates and stuff. And there's some similarities between the two. They don't like to take no for an answer. They don't like to be denied.
No, that's a great point. I've always felt that about Crosby too. He's, like I said, I think he's a checker. He's a grinder for such a skilled player. He's one of the best grinders that's ever played that position. And I love the fact that he works on his game. I've read a lot of the stories you've written about this stuff, Kevin, over the years, and I love the fact that he does that. It does remind me a little bit of Wilt Chamberlain, actually, in Philadelphia years ago as a basketball player, because we used to hear, this is before my time, but I had family members that were huge into the 76ers and Wilt Chamberlain, and Wilt Chamberlain would come out and he would be 1 year he'd want to lead the league in assists, and he would he would just, because he could. He just would, I'm going to score 100 points in the game because I'm going to score 100 points in the game this year. He said that, and he did. He went out and scored 100 points in the game 1 year. 1 year he led in rebounding. It's just, but whatever he wanted to do, he could do, and he set these kind of incredible goals about the whole thing.
Except free throws. He was always a bad free throw shooter, but
better than you, Mike. Better than you.
That reminds me of my all-time favorite hockey quote, and I can't remember which Swedish player said it, but it was definitely a Swedish player. When asked why all NHL players date models, he said, "Because we can."
That's right. Well, why am I not anonymous anymore? We answered that question the other day. Because of the chicks. So yeah. All right. Let's get into the big story though. That story sort of shook me. I was kind of surprised by it. But this one really shook us yesterday. It shook us so much that it destroyed our podcast, knocked us off the air. Couldn't even talk about it. Google just went crazy, I guess. Our podcast, our technical issues yesterday were just bizarre. It happened all day in both of our shows. But that aside, Marc-Andre Fleury, who you actually hinted towards in the show there, Kevin, of possibly re-signing, and I thought that was crazy talk. And there he is. He's re-signed. I mean, what are your thoughts on this, Kev?
Well, ultimately, when you sort of shake yourself, because at the start of the year, I think all of us assumed this was the parting shot for Fleury because he wasn't re-signed in the summer, and we know his up and down history. It's a love-hate relationship with the fans there in Fleury. We know how well liked he is by teammates. We know how the media like him as well. But maybe it was time and in both parties' best interest for him to move on. However, there were signs all early in the season that Jim Rutherford was really starting to like him. And yesterday, after the news came down, I thought, this is a very logical decision. And it's logical for this reason. Number one, what are the Penguins' options if they get rid of Marc-Andre Fleury? Michael alluded to it the other day. When you look at the free agent list, there's nobody there. Antti Niemi is the best of the group. Victor Fast is in there. There's nobody that you're going to say, oh, they're heads and shoulders above Marc-Andre Fleury, who has a lot of wins under his belt. And he's been the number one goalie in Pittsburgh for a decade. And everybody's accustomed to him. They know the way he plays. Secondly, Jim Rutherford was a goalie in the NHL, a pretty good goalie. He knows goaltending, and he likes what he sees. He likes the changes that Fleury has made in his game. I was told yesterday that Mike Bales, the goaltending coach there, has had an impact on Fleury. This puck possession game is good for Fleury. The Penguins are going to try to control the puck a little bit more. He's probably not going to face as many odd man rushes as he has in the past. And the terms were reasonable. I don't think he gave him a significant hometown discount, but $5.7 million per year for a 10-year starting goalie is a pretty good deal for the Pittsburgh Penguins. And more importantly, the term. It's 4 years. In today's game, where you're giving out 7- and 8-year contracts, that's a pretty nice little setup for the Penguins. Right. They can fit this in. So when you factor in all those, it was a very logical decision. It was probably the only conclusion that Jim Rutherford could reach is, the best situation is for us to sign Fleury at 4 years at $5.75 million a year. I'm sure he came away yesterday feeling pretty good about what he had accomplished.
I guess so. I mean, all those reasons are exactly right logically. But at the end of the day, I still can't get by having watched Fleury in all these playoff series, and I just can't, and not in watching the Penguins. I really wouldn't. I want to see the Penguins succeed with this guy in goal again. I mean, I know they have once, so there's that argument, Well, if they hadn't once, would this have been possible? I guess is another question. Mike, your thought? What were you going to say?
Well, I mean, the thing is, if we were coming off a playoff season where Marc-Andre Fleury was central in the reason that the Penguins lost, I would say that they probably wouldn't have done this deal. But he played well against Columbus and he played well against the Rangers. Rob Rossi from the Pittsburgh Tribune-Review was interviewed on a show this morning, and he said the reason that the Penguins didn't advance in the playoffs was Crosby and Malkin not being able to score. And if you look at that the blame to Marc-Andre Fleury just was not accurate. Now, as to what Kevin said, it's a reasonable deal. 5.75 is sort of in the middle. It's not what Rene's making. It's not what Lundqvist is making. So they got I think, sort of a hometown discount. they have some flexibility here because it's 4 years, it's not 7 years, and if it doesn't work out there are a number of teams that might be interested in trading for him. So I think Rutherford made the most prudent move he could make. I think that Antti Niemi, based on the problems he's had in San Jose, or Jonas Enroth or Victor Fast, would have been the answer in Pittsburgh if they decided to walk away from Fleury.
That's true, and that is the real burr in my sock here, is that there is not another goalie, right? And I get that.
Right.
But then that doesn't bode well for me for the Pittsburgh Penguins in some ways.
Let me just further the point. The standard operating procedure for teams in the NHL now, and this is again, I said this with Dion Phaneuf when he signed his contract with the Leafs. The option of letting a guy go for nothing, meaning letting him test unrestricted free agency and walking away without them being able to trade him and get something back, or signing them to a deal, the teams are locking up these players. And maybe there was a debate inside the Penguins organization of whether to walk away from Fleury or sign him, but you can't trade a guy if you let him walk away for nothing. So they have options now that they've signed him to a 4-year deal and his contract is not unreasonable, that if he works out, they got a good deal and it's not a ridiculous term. And if he doesn't work out, then there will be teams that would be interested if they think that Fleury needs a change of scenery. So it's a win-win in that sense for the Penguins.
Right.
The funny thing to me in this situation is, remember a few weeks back when Rutherford came out and said, as long as I'm here, Fleury's our guy, right? And it's funny with hockey fans because either we're so used to misdirection, being vague, or trying to go one direction and then actually meaning something else. I heard from all these Penguins fans, they were saying, "Oh, that's malarkey. Come on, there's no way he actually means that, because if he meant that, Fleury would already be signed." And I told some of them, "Well, he's working on the deal. Like, why wouldn't you take him at face value for this? What would Rutherford have to gain by saying, no, this guy's a bum, forget it?" We don't just take things at face value anymore. And I think this proves that, especially when it's an old school guy like Rutherford, you can actually believe what some of these guys say when they come out publicly and express confidence in a guy. Now, is Marc-Andre Fleury an elite goaltender? No, but he's a good goaltender, and I think you look at the teams that have been searching for goaltending help for more than a decade. Look at Philadelphia or Edmonton or Washington. You have an asset there. You have a reliable player who wants to be there, and he's not going to hurt you. And if he's not going to hurt you, why not lock him up?
Yeah, and Kev, I think the one thought that I had for you, I mean, I agree with what you're saying, Ryan. The one, if I'm going to play the other side of this thing and agree with that he should be re-signed, is going to be this. Remember when Fleury came into the league and there was this bizarre thing in his contract where he could only play so many games, and there was a situation where if they played him too many games, he got and he just didn't play well, and there were all these confidence issues about Fleury at that time. There's always been this sort of like handling of Fleury with kid gloves that has happened throughout time, that the team feels like they need to give him confidence and show him that he's the guy, and I think that this does that. This does that. This actually creates that situation for him, and maybe that is going to be a good thing. Kev?
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, they're showing him the love. He needed the love. He got the love. And he's only 29, and in goalie years, that's still young. And not too. This is arguably the best season of his career, numbers-wise. It is. He's never been sub-2. Save percentage is up is around 930. This is a 906 lifetime career guy. But here's the other thing too. He's always been a polarizing figure in Pittsburgh in terms of there are a lot of people who think he is not the answer, and there are people who love him. He's a very animated personality. He's fun. The Penguins like to bring people into fans to watch practice. He puts on a little show. He does jumping jacks during the the shootout competition. He'll be doing jumping jacks while the players come down. And
right.
He's fun. He plays to the crowd, and he's very likable. And teammates like him. You really cannot underestimate, how popular he is in the room. And I think we sort of had a glimpse of that in the HBO 24/7. That he's a real likable personality. And here's the other thing too. Like, I know of his playoff struggles. I've been just as critical. And I expected him. I mean, a year ago, if you told me that they were going to extend his contract, I would have thought that was just crazy. But saying all that, if they make a good run here, and let's say they get to the finals again, or even win a cup. I mean, if we played for the cup today, you'd have to make them one of the favorites. They're playing really well. I mean, they're about to score the opposition in the last 5 games, 24-3. Let's say they win another cup. He's going to go down. Despite all of his spotty playoffs record for 5 years, he'll go down as one of the most popular players in Penguins history. I mean, he'd have 2 cups. I mean, his number is going to be hanging from the rafters. He's got a lot of wins. He looks like he's going to be there for a long time. Popular. There's a lot of Fleury jerseys. There's a lot to be said. Would I say he's a top 10 goalie? No, but. He's a good goalie. We've seen him play at a high level. So I think, in addition to the free agent market, and I asked this yesterday to a GM, I said, what's the goalie market? And he goes, non-existent in terms of trading. I mean, and if you think about it, there's no, in my opinion anyway, no Luongo-Schneider situation out there that you could take advantage of.
Right.
And the motivation for Jim Rutherford is with the goaltending market being that bereft of any options. If the Penguins go to a conference final or go to the finals this year and Fleury wasn't signed, he'd be getting a lot more than $5.75 million as a free agent. You could probably be talking $6.5. So in a way, they've saved themselves probably $1 million a year in terms of signing Fleury now rather than waiting until the off season.
And that matters a lot on the Penguins because the Penguins have cap issues. They definitely have a lot of high priced players. They can't do this. And this was initiated apparently from what we're hearing out there by Fleury, right? That Fleury went to them and said, "I want to do this. I want to get this done right now." And that is that shows something for the fans and the teams as well. This guy wanted this to be over with, and I really think that there is, going back to what I was saying before, there's definitely now going to be finally Fleury's here type thing, because over the last couple of years, having it felt like this is his last playoff year, or next year's his next year's his last playoff, and now that taking that element out of things, is always something that I love to do. I like when that's not there. So I guess overall,
let's remember the lesson of Ed Belfour. He's a terrible goalie. He's inconsistent. He's terrible in the postseason. He's just bad. This guy's not. He wins a cup. All right, he's a great goalie.
Right.
Tigers, he's a great goalie, and.
Well, you brought up the Yzerman example yesterday, Kev. And I remember after they lost to the Leafs in '93, it was a year or two after that, there were rumors about Yzerman being traded to Ottawa. I think it was when Ottawa had a top pick in the draft, and they were saying, okay, we're never going to win with Steve Yzerman. Let's trade him for a top draft pick. It might have been I don't know if it was the Radek Bonk year or whatever year it was, but there was serious talk about that. And look at what difference it would have made in the history of the Red Wings if they had followed through and traded Yzerman at that point.
Yeah. So. I don't think Fleury's Yzerman. But
I'm not making that.
But I agree with you. I agree with that. I do agree.
More ways than one. So.
Yeah. All right. So here's something I like to do every time this time of year. The NHL puts out a little list to, and I grabbed it, about their top selling player jerseys on shopnhl.com. Okay, as of now. So you always wonder who are the most popular jerseys out there, and some of them are pretty obvious, right? You would guess that, but every year we get some people that are sneaking into this top. So this was as of mid-October. Okay, so this is right as the season was starting. So I was going to give each of you guys 3 guesses. I can tell you if you can get all 3 in the top 20, you win a prize. Top 25 I have here, and then for the highest number, I'm going to give an overall prize. So if you get number 1, you're going to get the most points. If you get number 2, so just going as in age difference here first. I'm going to say, Ryan, you're the youngest of us. Okay, you are. Okay, so Ryan, you get your first pick. Go ahead.
I'll go with Crosby.
Okay,
The
so
obvious
Crosby,
choice.
easy pick. Number 2. Okay, so he's number 2 of 25, so that's pretty good. All right, now, Mike, you're up.
Patrick Kane.
Number 1, Mike. Very good.
Wow.
Very impressive.
It's that Buffalo thing. What can I say?
Got 1 and 2. All right, Kev.
I'm going to go with Pavel Datsyuk.
Pavel Datsyuk is not in the top 25.
Hard to believe.
That is hard to believe. He has been in the past for sure. Not in the top 25. All right, back to you, Ryan. Kev, you got some ground to make up. Go ahead, Kev.
I'll go Phil Kessel.
Phil Kessel. All right, let's see. Phil Kessel. Not in the top 25.
My goodness.
You got to factor in, Ryan, that everybody who was a fan of Phil Kessel probably already bought the jersey.
That's true. That's true.
Home and away. All right, Mike, you go ahead. Yours.
I'll say Nathan McKinnon.
Nathan McKinnon. Now you guys are helping Kevin out. Not in the top 25. Kev, you got a bonus by them missing on their next 2 picks. Go ahead.
Jonathan Taves.
Jonathan Taves, number 3. Kevin's right back in this.
Okay.
All right, so it's coming down to the wire now. That's 1, 2, 3.
I'll go Stamkos.
Right. Okay, Ryan goes with Stamkos. Stamkos, number 23, Ryan.
What? Jeez.
23.
Plus Chiefskates in Florida.
That's not too good. So, all right, so now you got a shot, Mike. If you can, go ahead, Go ahead, Mike. What do you got?
Toronto's own John Tavares.
John Tavares. Oh, man. Number 11.
Okay.
All right, so that's pretty good. That's pretty good. So now this is what comes down to for you, Kevin. Now with your final pick, if you can get anyone from 9, if you can get one of the from 4 to 4, 5, 6, 7, or 8 or 9, you can win this thing. All right, so
I have a guy that I should pick, but I'm going to take with a little nationalistic pride, T.J. Oshie.
T.J. Oshie. Not in the top 25.
Oh,
Wow.
Oh man.
Okay, I was gonna guess Malkin.
Wow. Well, I'm gonna go back. We'll give you Malkin, and I'll give you Malkin there. Malkin would have gotten you in the win because Malkin's number 8.
Okay.
I should have said Kopitar. Kopitar's got to be high, right?
Ryan goes with Kopitar, number 10. Yes.
Give us the top, say 10 or 12.
I'll give you the top 25. All right. So we got Kane, Crosby, Taves. Number 4, a goalie.
Quick.
Right.
Oh.
No, Quick is number 14. Goalie, Henrik Lundqvist, number 4.
Ah, yes, okay.
Number 5, I can't believe you guys wouldn't guess Alexander Ovechkin.
I was going to.
He was on my list too. So.
Number 6 is Ryan Getzlaff. Number 7 is Claude Giroux.
Not surprising.
8 is Malkin. 9, Patrice Bergeron. 10, Anze Kopitar. 11, Tavares. 12, for the first time ever on a Minnesota Wild player on this list, which I've never seen before, Zach Parise at number 12. 13, 14, Jonathan Quick. 15, surprising on this one, Marian Hossa, still popular. 16, Sagan. 17, Corey Crawford. Those Blackhawk people buy their jerseys, man.
I thought he said Corey Cross for a second.
Corey Crawford. 18 was Dustin Brown. 19's Milan Lucic. 20, Pavel Datsyuk. What? Oh, man, I screwed that up.
Oh, geez.
Kevin does get the victory. I apologize. Kevin gets the victory because he did get Datsyuk before, so he does win this thing. I missed that totally. Sorry about that.
I demand a recount.
Nope.
But we're not Florida. So.
No, this is not Florida. 21 is Marty St. Louis. 22 is Drew Doughty. 23 is Stamkos. 24, Alex Pietrangelo, which is kind of surprising. 25, Henrik Zetterberg. So there you go. There's the top 25.
So no Canadian teams. Well, the Canadian teams must not have been involved.
No, that is interesting. Hold on. Are you right? That's right.
That has to be flawed because think about it.
Wait a second. You're right. That does not make sense.
Yeah, wow.
That's all right. I will do some more research. Maybe
it's U.S. sales.
No. This is crazy.
Canadians don't order their jerseys from NHL.com.
That's what you're talking about, right? Because they can get it at the local 7-Eleven.
I also read something where people who were ordering jerseys from NHL.com couldn't get them shipped to Canada. So maybe there was something with that. I don't know.
In Canada, can't you buy a jersey at 7-Eleven? I mean,
yeah. Canadian Tire you can buy them at.
That's right. You can.
You don't need to order them online.
Right.
All right. So next story up, we got the draft. Looking forward to the draft in 20.
Oh, okay. I know where you're going here.
2024. If we're all alive then. Have you guys seen the whole thing? The 11-year-old Japanese hockey prodigy.
Yes. Yeah, I saw that.
This is Aitu Iguchi. Okay, which sounds more like a Pokemon than a hockey player. Is one of Pavel Barber client apparently.
Yeah, as we show the replay or as we show the video, I can cue it up. The one thing that I'm not to criticize an 11-year-old who's got amazing gifts, but
only you would, Mike.
but he's doing the same move. This is the same James Van Riemsdyk pass between the legs move. And on almost every play, and he's for an 11-year-old, he's very impressive. But let's just say,
are you really critiquing?
Yeah, seriously, Mike.
Honest to God, we have crossed the line.
We've crossed the line here. I know. Okay, so here we go.
This is my.
This is Iguchi now. That wasn't him, but this is it. Pavel Barber. Sorry. So here he is. That's a nice move. This kid can skate better than I can skate, Mike. I'll leave that. He's 11.
It's a heck of a move.
That's not a bad move right there. Okay. Right. This kid is this is serious stuff. He is through the legs at 11 years old.
Yeah. At 11, I couldn't even dump and chase, Mike. Come on.
Who you feel bad for in these pictures are the poor little goalies.
Oh. Actually, the funny thing is, he makes a couple really nice dishes to his teammates who are I don't know. Yeah, there you go. He dished off to this guy. It was basically a cookie. It was an open net, and the guy fanned on it because he wasn't expecting the pass.
Well, he's 11. The teammate is 11 as well. Remember that. You can't.
The 11-year-old brain isn't as adept, as.
Yeah, but this is my video to get on the Cranky Hockey Writer show. I'm critiquing the 11-year-old.
That'll get you on there.
I don't think the kid hits enough. I personally, watching this, he doesn't look like he's a physical player at all. I don't see anything in his game that makes me think he could play in the NHL.
He's Johnny Gaudreau's size too. Seriously.
Yeah, well, he's actually a little bigger than Johnny Gaudreau, but he's he's definitely. This is still impressive.
I will give you one tale of caution from an old goat who's covered the league a long time. In the early 1980s, Mike may know about this because he lives to the border, but a very famous youth tournament is the Silver Stick Tournament. That's based in Port Huron, Michigan, but it's also across the border in Sarnia. And top teams from around Canada show up for this. And in the early 80s, I was working at a newspaper there, and there was a guy who had broken a lot of Wayne Gretzky's youth records. And, his youth records were stratospheric in terms of the number of goals, 400 a year and all that. I wish I could remember the kid's name. It might come to me before it's over. But anyway, I wrote about this kid, and just in the terms of people were projecting, just as they did when Wayne Gretzky was 10 years old, how great he was. And I obviously remembered his name back then, and I kept track of him. And he went and played in Ontario Hockey League. But he was never the same player that he was when he was, 11 years old. Just because, and you could dominate at that level. In fact, there was another player, a Vietnamese refugee named Quang Le, I do remember his name, who was a very big kid and was a defenseman. He never even made it to. He was a dominant defenseman, and he never made it to even the junior hockey that I can remember anyway. But this kid was from Blenheim. Boy, I wish I could remember his name.
So, Alexander Degg.
Yeah. I mean, that's a cautionary tale of sometimes you watch guys in junior hockey and it doesn't translate when they get in the NHL. But I'm sure this kid, who knows? I mean, people watch.
Kev, was it Brian Fogarty?
No, it was a guy. He never made it. This kid
Never made it. Okay.
He was from Blenheim, Ontario.
Wow, that's something, I mean, it is just amazing. I mean, he is. I guess, is he playing in a Japanese league? Is that what we're watching?
So. I believe so.
Because I mean I'm impressed that there's a Japanese league. Did that hit anybody else like that? Like, if this kid's playing in a Japanese league, that impressed me enough. Like, right there. I mean, put it this way, if we keep going to the Olympics, this kid will be a factor for Team Japan. Which we haven't seen, in a while. I think it's, prodigies, and it's a whole, gosh, we could do a whole day on it, on prodigies and on, like, and I'm just being around youth sports now, like I'm around my daughter who's really playing at a high level of soccer for her age, right? And I'm seeing how, there's kids who are amazing that, are on her team who then go and play in another tournament and are like the worst player. And and she's playing in my sister's team's ranked 12th in the state of Pennsylvania and like 112th in the country. I mean, for her age group, they're a good team, and yet they take the best player off their team, and there's still players that are just way better than that player. And you see how this whole thing plays out. Prodigy-wise, it just, oh man, there's always, I mean, there's the levels that we see are just incredible.
And that's what always shocks me. Every time I talked to an NHL player, I would think, I'm talking to someone who is better at this than anyone I've ever met before in my life. Even if it's a frontline grinder, he dominated every league he ever grew up in. He was captain of every team. He was adored by the entire community. You have to kind of factor that in when you're looking at a guy and saying, this guy sucks. He only wins 45% of his face-offs and can't score more than a half a point per game on the third line. Like, these guys are all elite athletes.
It's funny. I mean, and it's funny you say that because one time it wasn't too long ago. I mean, about like probably 5 or 6 years ago, that I was covering a Flyers practice, and afterwards we decided we'd play open hockey because they had open hockey sessions right afterwards. So we brought our stuff with us and we played open hockey, and some of the Phantoms actually came out on the ice, and at that time, I remember this was actually, that was like 10 years ago. Shel Samuelson came out and he was working with the Phantoms. And he played open hockey with us for a little while, and just was like just hanging out with us and played open hockey. And Shel Samuelson was, as an NHL player, I remember him as being a laboring, slow, stay-at-home defenseman who, could get up and down the ice a little bit, but just like schooled people that I've been playing open hockey with since I was younger, just made in goal, And it's the levels are just crazy. I mean, it's an out of shape retired, Shel Samuelson, So yeah, it's nuts.
Yeah, your Samuelson was my Bob Rouse. I was playing in adult league hockey in my early 40s years ago, and playing it as the Breakfast Club, and it was really a great, actually, nice concept because you played games, but you matched up. It was much like tennis. Like first lines only played against first line, second lines only played against second lines, third. It was a great concept. I loved it. And anyway, I was trying to get better and everything, and I happened to be at a Red Wings practice, and when it was over, Bob Rouse came on the ice. Now, Bob Rouse, now the other thing I would bring up too is that no one who's ever read me for years have ever seen me call anyone a poor skater. I call them below average because if you're in the NHL, you're not a poor skater.
Right.
I bring this up because Bob Rouse is considered a very below average skater. And I watched him. He was coming back from an injury, just make laps around the arena going as fast as he could. And I watched that and I go, it's just really remarkable how fast Bob Rouse is skating right now. And Bob is not anywhere near as fast as the guys who can really skate.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, and I understand what you're saying. I mean, to you, Shel Samuelson was like Bobby Orr, I'm sure, when he was playing.
He was mocking me, literally mocking me. Like he would come down the ice and I would make a save and then he would take another, and instead of just shooting into the open net, he would shoot it back at me again, and then he would shoot it back at me again. He said, "Get up, goalie." He was yelling at me. I mean, this was he said, "Get up, goalie." I'm like, what? Just score already. he wouldn't want to score. He would get that. He would beat me in the rebound, get the chance to shoot it back at me again. That was hilarious. I mean, and I was just, I felt like I was going to die, and this guy could toy with me.
Sel Samuelson was also the subject of my favorite Jay Greenberg lead, and for those who don't know, Jay Greenberg wrote for a Philadelphia paper. Was it the Daily News or the Inquirer? Daily News.
The Inquirer, yeah.
Well, I thought it was the Daily News. Well,
it was Daily News. Sorry, Daily News. Morgani was the Inquirer.
But he was a terrific beat writer. He's a Hall of Famer. And then he ended up going to Canada and in New York and wrote for Sports Illustrated for a while. But anyway, he was a very clever writer. And one time he penned a lead that was something to the effect that Shel Samuelson was a trained carpenter, therefore has the skill to build the gallows by which Philadelphia fans would like to hang him.
That's excellent. Oh, that is excellent. Before we get into some rumors too, I want to discuss. We talked about Russ Cohen, who was on here, who has a book, and Kevin, you have several books. I have several of them. But the most recent one you came out with, I wanted to do a little promoting on today, was Chris Chelios's book, which was just released. First of all, what was it like to work with Chelly?
Well, before we start, I'm going to show people here the two versions of the book.
Okay.
There's an American version called Made in America, and
right.
I'm sure all of you can guess why the Canadian publisher did not want that title. Canadian version here that looks, I'm not sure why I can't seem to get that to zoom in. Back up a little bit. And that's the Canadian version that's going well. But the experience was just awesome. Like, I had known Chelios for a very long time, but I certainly was not as close to him or knew him as well as, say, I knew Jeremy Roenick, who I had done the season before, or Darren McCarty. I've done Brett Hull's book. I knew him better. I knew Mike Madano as well. But once I got to know Chris, it was probably one of my better book writing experiences. If you get inside Chris Chelios' inner circle, it's a fun place to hang out. He has that Malibu Mafia out there, and he's, you're with him, and he's talking to, Kevin Dillon, who was on Entourage, or, he's taking a phone call from John McEnroe, or, one of his closest friends is Kid Rock. He's a very unique character. And he's a lot of fun and very unique, very loyal. His stories were a lot of fun. It was easier. It was actually hard to figure out what to leave out of the book. There was a lot of material. So it was fun. It was a good experience.
We're gonna definitely put a link up to it, because I remember when you were doing this, when we were covering the finals, and I was driving around, you were telling me some great stories that you were getting from it when we were going on the media bus back and forth. And did the one about the bar ever make it into it, like where he was challenged the bar? Did that make it into the book?
Oh, yeah. It's just a great story.
You gotta tell that story. That story was awesome.
Well, it really came down to the trade from Montreal to Chicago, and what was unique about that is I asked Chris, okay, well, where were you when you heard that you were traded back to your hometown from Montreal? And he said, actually, I was in jail, and which is a true story. He and Gary Suter, who was his longtime buddy, were out, and one thing led to another, and there was an altercation with some police officers, and next thing you knew, he had to spend the night in the pokey. But anyway, the fans in Montreal, blamed Chris. Like, he had become their captain in Montreal, and they thought he had forced the trade, which is simply not true. He did not force the trade, and tried his darndest to make it work in Montreal, and was actually, for years, sort of wondered why it was that he was traded. But anyway, because of that, sometimes Montreal fans, who, as we all know, are quite passionate, would confront him, and two of them, one of whom was a pretty aggressive guy, challenged him at a Chicago bar, and Chris said to him, I'm not going to fight you, because the minute I fight you, you're going to sue me, and I probably have a lot more money than you do, and I want to keep my money, so there is no way that I am going to fight you. And the guy said, you're chicken. He goes, no, I just don't want to get sued. And he goes, well, then Chris said, well, I'll tell you what, if you will sign a piece of paper absolving me of any legal ramifications, I will battle with you. And the guy said, well, I'll do that for sure, for sure. And so he asked the bartender for a sheet of paper, and he made him sign his name, whatever it was. I, John Smith, absolved Chris Chelios. I initiated this fight. He simply defended himself, and he signed his name, John Smith. And Chelios said, well, that's all fine and dandy, but how do I even know that you're even John Smith or whoever you say you are? I'm going to need to see your license. So the guy said, all right. So he reaches in his pocket to get his license, and when he had his hands in his pocket, Chelios reared back, cold cocked him, and knocked him out right on the and he found himself outside, and he was screaming. They had thrown him out. The bartender, Chelios, just held up the paper and held it in his face, and then the bouncers went out and said, "Where do you want us to take him?" And say, just take him down the block and let him go. So that's how Chelios dealt with that issue.
That's one of my favorite stories. I have told a few people that it's just an awesome story. I mean, that's what you got to get. You got to check out the book, guys. I mean, honestly, this Kevin's just got away with these books and a lot of these biographies, like the Gordie Howe one, which you were showing the other day, and this one, yeah. And there's some, and the Roenick one's phenomenal. The McCarty one's phenomenal. So yeah, we'll talk about more of them as we go on. But I'll put a link up definitely to get the book.
I'll give a little scoop on this. Podcast too. The Roenick book did really, really well, even in Canada, despite the fact that obviously Roenick is an American star. And I am currently talking with Triumph Books about doing a second Roenick book, which
really
we get it together there. I just talked to JR about it, and he's excited. It'll be a series of sort of 10 essays on sort of topics about hockey, and he and I will piece that together. He'll talk about the impact social media will have on his life, if we come to an agreement that we'll talk about, and his some of his encounters with fans. His wife will give us some insight, and he'll talk about the things they don't tell you about being a pro athlete. He'll talk about some of those, so it could be a fun book. And I'm also talking with Mike Modano. I told him, I sent him a text, and I said, I've done Hull, Chelios, and Roenick. I need you to complete the American Hockey Grand Slam.
He's got to do it. He's got to do it. No question.
Yeah, and he said he was interested, so we'll see where that goes.
A lot of F-bombs in the Roenick book. I know that was a funny story with you. You were always F-bombs.
That was a great concept because there were JR wanted it real, and it was just a question of how real we were going to make it, and And so I made it what I thought was pretty real, and left in the way he would talk as two guys talking in a bar. And then we talked about it, and he wanted more. So I counted up another 287 words that I threw back into the book, guaranteeing our R rating.
Yeah, right. And then you're done.
When it was done, I think we set a record. I think we set an NHL record for most F-bombs in a book.
You were looking for more F-bombs than the movie Scarface there.
Yeah, no, it was quite fun, and I will never forget the 45-minute conversation that Jeremy Roenick and I had with the Canadian lawyers. Now, it's really fascinating, but in Canada, there's freedom of speech, but not like it is in America. Like in America, you have an opinion, you're allowed to give it. In Canada, you're allowed to give your opinion, but they ask you, but can you prove that? Right. So anyway, Jeremy, I'm not sure that he enjoyed all that experience, but it was a load of fun. I just really enjoy Roenick. He's a very passionate guy. He's a good man too. He's got a huge heart. There's no doubt about it, and he cares about fans. Gordie Howe, early in his career when he was playing for the Hartford Whalers, was skating in the pregame and came around and winked at Roenick, and then he shoveled some ice on his stick and came and dumped it on Roenick's head when Roenick was a fan, and it had a tremendous impact on Roenick, and because of that, he always felt like he needed to do all he could for the fans, and he is still friends today with kids that he befriended, like in Toronto and around the country, who came in and asked for his autograph. There's one guy in particular that has been friends. He's been friends with for 25 years. And the guy, when they met, he was just an autograph seeker.
He's completely real. I mean, and it was funny. The night you found out about the John Ferguson Award, he came and sat with us in the bar there when the Stanley Cup was having their party. JR did, and we were talking to him, and you see there's so many sides of him. There's a side of him that's just completely, that you see on TV, trying to be a certain way. I think trying to. Did I mute myself there? I apologize.
Yeah.
Yeah, he did.
So, no, but there's many sides of Roenick, and the reality of it is just he's when he was sitting down with us, I was just amazed at how real he was. He is very real when he's real. He's just there. I love the what your daughter said to you about the Roenick book too. That was like the other thing that always stuck out in my head. About she got the text about this is a great bleeping book.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's what my daughter sent back. Said she sent me a text that this is a great bleeping book.
Which is like the last thing your daughter would ever say.
Exactly. So
awesome. Well, check all this stuff out, guys, and I do have some rumors that we were going to get to, but I don't think yeah, we got 5 minutes. Drats. I was going to try to hold off on them. Because you got to read. You got to leave something for the blog, guys. So no, but anyway, yeah. The one rumor that came up again, which involves both you guys, Ryan and Mike, is that the Oilers once again were poking around. I was told, and this is by an NHL executive at the NHL offices, about Gardner, about the defenseman Gardner, Edmonton, having interest in him. And that this just will not go away. This is one of those rumors that just seems like it eventually has to happen. It's been going on for such a long time. Yeah. And all the connections, of course, to Schultz and all this, Gardner and Schultz being teammates and having played together before. Ryan, do you like this move if they do it?
I love the move. Because clearly the Oilers are committed to Schultz. They want him to stay there for as long as possible. They want this next contract negotiation to go smoothly. They are totally all in on keeping Schultz because McTavish has come right out and said it. He chose us, so we owe it to him to make him happy. And if bringing in Gardner makes the guy happy, then David Perron the other way, the Oilers' leading scorer from last season, the leading goal scorer from last season. Why not, right? Why not?
Right. And David Perron is a guy who, as I was told, it's hard to not connect these rumors together, but these are two different people telling me two different things. The one person is telling me that the Gardner thing is something that the Oilers are still, and then another person saying separately that the Leafs have talked to Edmonton about David Perron. So I'm not saying that this is like a one-for-one deal or anything like that. It's just that these have been different discussions.
Yeah, if it's Gardner for Perron, I think it's not a move that the Leafs are going to make because I don't think Perron Perron is another player on the periphery. He's a speed guy. He's not a I dispute whether he's a top 6 forward. I mean, maybe on Edmonton he is. I don't think he would really fit with the Leafs. If they're going to trade Gardner, they've talked about wanting to get a comparably aged and comparably talented player. To me, that means, I'm not saying that he's the equal of Jordan Eberle or anything like that, but that means talking about an Eberle or talking about a Yakupov. A deal for David Perron doesn't add up, and I don't think the Leafs. I don't think that's what the Leafs are looking for. And plus, all these rumors have perked up right after Gardner has one of his worst games of the year and gives away the puck on a goal. It's almost like they're being driven by Edmonton because they're interested in him and they're trying to take advantage of the fact that the criticism level in Toronto will be higher because Gardner made a bonehead play.
But Gardner was really playing well last week and made that incredible goal too. So he's all over the map right now. Kevin, you're the great arbitrator here.
Yeah, well, the only thing I would say is just because they played well together to Wisconsin in college hockey, they don't seem to me to be complementary players now. I mean, there's not 2 pucks on the ice. They're both going to want the puck. They're both skaters. They both are offensive guys. Someone's going to have to play defense. So, if they acquire him, I don't see them playing together. You'd have, you'd want Gardner with more of a defensive guy, and to me that makes sense for Schultz as well.
Yeah. But as far as fair value goes, Kevin, if you were the arbitrator of this deal, as the great arbitrator, Perron,
I would not make that trade by Toronto standards. I mean, they've got players like him.
Okay.
I think you could do better for Gardner. I mean, there is I use the word romance often, but that's what it is. There's a romance with Gardner because of his skating ability. I think you could do better.
And I do think, Eck, that if the Leafs do make a trade involving Gardner, that they will have to get somebody who they believe is capable of being a top 6 forward, because the player that continues to be rumored in terms of the Leafs trading, maybe not right now, but maybe before the deadline or during the offseason, is Joffrey Lupul. He continues to get hurt all the time, but he has a skill set, and for teams out there looking for an offensive player with ability, and he's only, I think, under contract for 3 more years, they might be able to trade Lupul now or in the offseason, but they need a top 6 forward back for Gardner if they're going to make that kind of deal.
Yeah, I'm going to disagree with both of you guys. I think this is a fair trade. I think Gardner's way overvalued. And I think Perrin is undervalued by both of you in this case. I think that Perrin is a really good player. And I know I've been a Perrin fan for a long time, and I know he's faced his concussion issues and stuff like that, and has had his time. But I think he's a super talented player. And within the right scheme, could become a really good player. And I know he's another winger, which is not what Toronto's looking for.
Right.
I know he's another smallish type guy, which is not what Toronto's looking for.
Keep tracking him along. Keep going.
Yeah. But there's got to be a middle ground. It's not Eberle. It's not Yakupov. It's not like there's not. We're not talking about Gardner's not worth those guys.
Well, no, I'm talking about maybe the Leafs have to give up more, but.
Yeah. I would agree. I mean, it's just one of those cases, Zach, where it's not a good fit for the team. Like, if you were saying shipping Perron to the Phoenix Coyotes, I'd say, oh, that's a great trade, because I agree with you. I mean, he's a dangerous offensive player, and they need offense in Phoenix, but he's not what the Maple Leafs need.
This person who also told me the person to be in full disclosure said the Leafs and Islanders had discussed Perrin, so that's so that's, anything's possible, but that's just it is definitely an interesting one. Gardner's such an enigma. They've had these defensemen that have been enigmas for a long time in Toronto. They're just hard to put your finger on what they're actually worth. So tonight, a couple good games on tech. Mike, go ahead. Sorry.
I said they always seem to play better once they get out of Toronto, so it's not as much of an enigma.
Right. No, that's true. They do. We'll give them that. I also heard the Flyers and Canucks were discussing something, and that's as far as it got. But this is from a Flyers source I really trust, and he said just keep your eyes open on the Canucks and the Flyers right now. So I've been trying my best to figure out what that could be. But it's
between
the Flyers
those two,
are in an interesting spot right now. They didn't look good against that at all. I mean, they won that game, and it's very deceptive when you look at the outside. The Flyers won the game 4-1. They looked terrible in that game. Edmonton looked way better.
They looked terrible when they took a 2-goal lead, right? Which.
Yeah, but they got it. Yeah. But if you looked at puck possession in that game and just in general, the Oilers had the puck 80% of the time after that. And the Oilers made probably twice as many passes as the Flyers made in that game. It was just one of these things. The Flyers just didn't control the game at all. And it's only because Mason played his best game of the year, and Fast was horrible, that the Flyers come out of that game with a 4-1 win. I mean, that was a microcosm of the Oilers right now, in general. But you saw how talented the Oilers are and how skilled they are, and it was just incredible. The Flyers did not look good in that game. Kolyakovo did look pretty good as a Flyer, though. I will give him that. But it's early and he's healthy, right? So that's the whole. And as we said before, Kev, he looked good in Detroit for a while too, right? I mean, Kolyakovo has some skills.
Yeah, I mean he does. He's a serviceable player. He's a nice 7 defenseman because he can skate and move the puck, and he's handy to have around. But he's not a guy that is going to be a difference maker.
Yeah. Well, right now that's where a lot of teams are at right now with all the injuries. So maybe it's a defenseman the Flyers are trying to get. Vancouver right now, I wouldn't do much with. If I was Vancouver, I wouldn't trade much of anything though. They're clipping on all cylinders. So that's why I haven't been able to figure out anything else with that trade. But we'll stay on that for sure. And we'll be back tomorrow with Ty Anderson, and we'll bring you into the weekend big weekend of games as things keep. It's getting good. It's getting good. I like the season. The season's starting to turn out a lot more interesting, I think, every week as we go by here. So guys, remember, without the buzz, it is just hockey, and we'll talk to you soon.